Hello, I'm Sergeant Gabriel, and today I'm going to be going over EOS 391.03, Assembling an Emergency Survival Kit. A survival kit is a kit containing everything you're going to need to survive in any given situation. Now, there's many different types of survival kits. You've got your home survival kits, your vehicle survival kits, you've got your personal survival kits, all this kind of stuff. But today, I'm just going to be going over home survival kits. Now, a home survival kit is a survival kit that you're going to need if for whatever reason you are trapped at home. If for whatever reason you're not allowed to leave home, you're not able to leave home. Now, this could happen for a number of reasons. There could be natural disasters, some sort of extreme weather events. There could be some sort of government shutdown, or there could be a massive pandemic that's kind of sweeping the world right now, and we're all under kind of mandatory self-isolation. Whatever the reason, if you are trapped at home, it's generally a good idea to have a home survival kit. So, in the next few minutes, if you will, I'd like to take a few minutes out of your time. We're going to be going over the necessities for your home survival kit. And the idea is to gather all these things together into one place, put them in a safe spot in your house, and don't use them until it's absolutely necessary. Generally, you're going to want enough materials when it comes to like food and water, which we'll cover later. You're going to want enough stuff to last you at least 2 weeks. So without further ado, let's get started. We can do a quick cut, and then we're going to get right into the lesson. All right, so first on the list, this is going to come a bit out of left field for some of you. You're going to want your passport or your birth certificate or any sort of documents of identification so that in the event of some sort of disaster scenario, like a massive hurricane or earthquake, and everything's in disarray and there's a disaster scenario, you can still be identified as you. You still have proof that you are you. And that's really important. And this next items, this is going to be a bit more obvious. You're going to want Band-Aids, gauze, polysporin, for example. Anything that can help you in the event of a wound or an injury. Because don't forget, if you're trapped in your house, you're not going to have a doctor waiting for you that could just patch you right up. All right? Sometimes you're going to have to do it yourself, or a family member is going to have to patch you up if you get injured. All right? So make sure you have something, and that's especially important for example, an earthquake or some sort of tornado or huge weather event. Maybe there's glass flying all over the place, you get cut in an earthquake, maybe something falls on your head, you need to get that patched up. Something like that where you have an injury that can't be resolved by a professional, you're going to want to have available a way that you can at least fix it a little bit. Next on the list, and this is along the same kind of lines, you're going to want rubbing alcohol or some sort of strong alcohol substance. This is obviously for the same kind of thing, for disinfecting, so you don't get some sort of infection or illness or sickness, which would be like the worst thing to ever happen in this kind of disaster scenario. But also, rubbing alcohol or this kind of alcohol is important for disinfecting surfaces, disinfecting food and water, not food and water, don't put it in your food and water, but pretty much disinfecting surfaces that could contain like viruses or bacteria, stuff like that. And obviously that's especially important if we're talking about a pandemic situation, which we're kind of in right now. I know a lot of people do like Lysol wipes on items when they're bringing them inside, and that's cool and all, but if you really want to get the job done and do it well, you're going to want to get alcohol. Next on the list, and this is going to serve as your communication item, you're going to want some sort of handheld radio or wireless radio, one that runs on some battery life. This is because in the event of some sort of massive shutdown, okay, if the lights stop working, if cell towers, just collapse, you're going to want some sort of form, some sort of way of communicating with the outside world if you're trapped in your house. And that's why you need a wireless radio. All right, and next on the list, you've got a flashlight. This is pretty important. This is going to serve as your sensory item. So if for whatever reason the lights go out or no more electricity, you want to have something that's battery powered that can produce light for you so you can see in the dark or if it's night, because you don't want to be trapped in the dark. You don't want to not know where you are. That's a very bad situation to be in, especially if it's like a severe weather kind of disaster, something like that. That's not the situation you want to be in. Next, we've got batteries. Now, this is just to accompany your walkie-talkie and your flashlight. You're going to want batteries of different varieties. Now, pay no attention to the fact that there's a bunch of batteries missing. I have a bunch of controllers, like for my games. So make sure you have batteries. Next, I'm sure you guys are waiting for me to mention this one. You want food, so I've got 2 massive Nutella things and some corn. All right. Generally, you'd want a wide variety of food, but canned food is the best way to go because it'll last a long time. It's non-perishable, so you can maintain it, and it doesn't have to be cooked or anything. You can just open it right up and eat it. So yeah, corn, Nutella, anything like this. It's actually a great combination. And then obviously in accordance with that, you're gonna want water as well. So food and water, definitely one of the most, if not the most important part of your emergency survival kit. And you're gonna want to have enough for 2 weeks is generally the recommended amount of time that you want to store food for, is food and water. Next, you're gonna want some spare clothing. This is not only for the fact of like heating. For example, if for whatever reason, if for whatever reason the heat in your house just isn't working, and let's say it's winter or you're really up north, like in Canada, we're pretty up there, so it's gonna get cold really easily, especially at nighttime. So you're gonna want layers. All right. Right now, I'm wearing 5 layers of shirts. Okay, including this. And that's really important because otherwise I would be freezing. I'm in the basement right now. I would be freezing, but I'm not because I'm wearing extra clothes. And I have extra clothes behind me as well. This stuff is really important, not only for heating, actually, because let's say you need some sort of rope or something that you need to fasten, like a lashing. Anything like that, spare material always works. You can always cut up a shirt, rip a shirt apart, use it for whatever reason. But shirts or clothing, anything like that, most importantly would be heating, but secondary use of them would be for some sort of craftsmanship or tools, or you can use it as a material in the event of whatever disaster. Next, and this is kind of along the same lines, you're gonna want a blanket. So with me right now, I've got my Dora blanket. So this is actually like really thick. It's like an inch thick. It keeps me really warm, and that's what you want out of a blanket in your survival kit. Your blanket is going to be your first source of heat. All right, I mentioned the clothing, but the clothing is mostly important for heating, for material, and also for like if you don't want to smell, right? You want to change your clothes. You don't want to be wearing the same clothes for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, however long you're going to be in lockdown, right? You want spare clothing. But the blanket is for sure important, And then next, you're going to want some sort of knife or multi-tool. I have a multi-tool. Where'd it go? Here it is. So you're gonna want some sort of knife or multi-tool, and not to like stab people or whatever, but just as a tool throughout your house. Like, look, multi-tools are probably more useful because they just are multi-tools, so they have a lot of different uses and applications. Like, for example, I've got wire cutters, I've got needle nose pliers, there's some screwdrivers in here, which is really important. So anything like that, any sort of tool you're gonna want in the event of like maybe you need to fasten something, maybe you need to MacGyver something really quickly. So you're gonna want something like that. And then finally, and this is another really important item, you're gonna want some sort of whistle or some sort of signaling device, okay? Because the 4 most important aspects to a survival kit, and you can add whatever you want, but the 4 most important are gonna be a self-help item. Like what I said earlier with the Band-Aids and the gauze and the rubbing alcohol. You're also gonna want a communication item, like what I said with the walkie-talkie. You're also going to want a sensory item, like the flashlight. And finally, you're going to want a signaling item. Now, I have here a whistle connected to my backpack, so you can right? Signal. So I'm sure you can imagine the uses of that. Like, for example, major flooding in your house. trapped on the roof, got your emergency survival kit. Someone's flying above in a helicopter, blow your whistle, get them. If you can't find a whistle, there's a bunch of other stuff you could use. For example, I've got this flute here. I mean, maybe it's, I don't know what it is. Right? Works the same way. Anything that can operate as a signaling device, all right, make sure you have that. Like, I also have this. It's a harmonica. Whatever. You know, anything that can act as a signaling device, just use it. And if all else fails, just scream at the top of your lungs, and that'll work as well. So that's like the basics. That's the most important things of a home survival kit that you're going to want to need. If you want to add anything, feel free. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you could add. For example, you could add some tape. I'm sure you could add some sort of game. Like here, I have this Sudoku thing right here. Anything like that, feel free to add. But what I've gone over in the past few minutes are going to be the most important things. So just to quickly go over them again. You're going to want documents to identify yourself. You're going to want Band-Aids, gauze, self-help items, okay? Alcohol, not only for self-help, but also for disinfecting surfaces in the case of like a pandemic. You're also going to want a wireless radio, which is going to serve as your communication item. Flashlights, which is your sensory item, or flashlight. Food and water, and a can opener. Clothing, spare clothing. Blanket for heat, obviously. Whistles or flutes or harmonicas, signaling devices. And finally, a knife or a multi-tool or something that you can use in the event of like having to, use said tools. That's it. And remember, the four most important parts of any survival kit are going to be self-help items, sensory items, communication items, and signaling items. Okay, thank you for listening to my lesson. Once again, I'm Sergeant Gabriel. You guys were great, very attentive, weren't noisy at all, and I really appreciate that. So, Sergeant Gabriel, this was EOS 391.03, Assembling an Emergency Survival Kit. Thank you.